And then I found myself as if my cup were filled in this presence. My capacity had been reached. I found myself on the other side of this light. And I could perceive now in a more physical sense a kingdom of light. And I could see that there was a river running from where I was and this wonderful kingdom of light. And I could see that there were many people. It was populated by tremendous numbers of people. And I knew each and every one of them intimately, and I loved them all dearly. And they were waiting for me, and they were welcoming me, and they were busy, and they were working, and they were learning, and they were very much involved with us on this plane of existence, in that plane of existence. And I was very happy to see this wonderful and beautiful welcoming home to me. And there was a man standing at the edge of this kingdom, and he was welcoming me. Come home. And I began to be moved again by my love, by my excitement, by my joy and my rapture and my attraction for this kingdom.
I found myself standing in an absolutely beautiful green meadow, and I knew what was going on. I knew again who I was, that I had died. My amnesia period was over with, and I stood there in this gorgeous meadow, and I remember that the light was different from the light here on earth, although it was not that brilliant white light in which I was involved, but it was a more beautiful light. There was a goldenness to this light. And I remember the sky was very blue. I don't recall seeing the sun. The colors were extraordinary. The green of the meadow was fantastic. There were flowers blooming all around, and the flowers had colors that I had never seen before. And I was very aware that I had never seen these colors before, and I was very excited about it. And, I was just standing here thinking, oh my gosh, I've never seen these colors before. And I thought I'd seen all the colors. And I was thrilled to death. The beauty was incredible. And in addition to the fantastic colors, I could see a soft light glowing inside every living thing. It was not a light that was reflected from an outside source. You could always tell that it was coming from somewhere in the center of this growing thing, this flower, this leaf, whatever. Just this beautiful soft light. And I think that I was seeing the life inside of everything. And when I had finished, more or less, looking at this exquisite beauty, I started to walk, and I had only taken a few steps before I saw that there was in front of me a hill. It was a rather low hill, and it seemed that immediately I was there on top of the hill. Now, I don't know whether I was able to just glide there very quickly and effortlessly, or whether I only had to think that I wanted to be there and I was there. What I do remember is that I did not have to climb the hill. There was no effort involved in this. And as I found myself at the top of the hill, I saw that over on the horizon, and just a little bit lower than the horizon, there was a city. And I realized in some way that this was more than just a city, that what I was seeing over there actually represented a world. And I wondered, is that the world that I just came from, or the one that I'm going to?
We went through these places that became like mountain ranges, and we came into a place where I could see cities of light, like in a fall evening and in a misty morning, you see the lights from the house radiate from a mountainside. That's what it was like. And as we moved into this city, I was aware of energies that I've never conceived of. I could conceive of a single drop of water And then I could conceive of its molecular structure. Then I could conceive of that drop of water being the ocean, as if it was single drops or if it was the entire ocean. And then I can conceive as if there was everything in it, which is so wild when you understand the might and range you have as a spiritual being. And the first thing I was thinking was, why in the world would I have ever wanted a human life? It was a building that was literally built of light. It was like it was made of glass and plexiglass brick, which each had its own energy form and its own nucleus, and it radiated. And the energy that it produced was far greater than the building itself.
I then felt this powerful current coming at me from the left. Like a river, a forceful river coming at me. But I didn't want to take my attention off of God. But this river came at me, and it came right up through my shoulder, and it was a river of music. The most amazing music. I'm guessing it was the sound of everything in the universe, each making its own perfect note. That's what I'm guessing. I don't know what it was made of, but it was glorious. And it entered my body, and I realized I was the music, and the music was me. Every cell of my body was music. And the music took on a round shape and colors that were hollow and bubbled up like champagne, and every single one of those bubbles was pure ecstasy. And I was that, and that was me. And the force of this river turned me, and it faced me to the right, and it was this moment that I realized that I was made of light. It was like a dress. I didn't have feet. Didn't need feet. I was floating. And it pushed me in this direction, and before me I saw a temple. And in that temple was set in like a park. And there were other beings of light in the park. And the other beings of light and I were literally and figuratively transparent. We knew each other's hearts. We knew each other's minds. We were one with each other. And we were separate. And that's when I learned that life is a paradox. Paradox, that's it. Everything is a paradox. And if you can get that truth through your mind, it's sort of like you only get to be perfect when you give up perfection. I was separate from the people I was totally connected to. And they knew that I had a purpose to be there. And they knew every thought I had and every feeling I had and greeted me. And as I floated towards this temple, they also left me to be on my path, going to where I was supposed to go. And so I drifted by them, and I went up, and there were these steps not unlike these, very low to the ground, very wide, very deep, and columns. And there was this temple building, and I was obsessed with the stone in the left-hand corner. You might call it the foundation stone. I don't know why. And it was about the width of 3 chairs, and probably the depth of the first row to the second row, and the height of the chairs. And it was made out of light, and there was no substance to it, and I couldn't see through it. And I couldn't understand that. And so I forgot to mention that as I was floating, I had the sense that I knew everything. I can't tell you what that was. If I could, I'd write the book. But I did know that I knew everything. But I could also ask questions. So I asked the question, what is this stone? And why is it made out of light but I can't see through it? And I was told that all of matter is light. The shape is light woven by thought. You could think of that as the blueprint that the architect might draw. And all of the substance is sound. Sound that causes the molecules to fill the form. And that is the nature of all matter.
When I came to on the other side, there was no white light tunnel. There was no family greeting me. I didn't have that experience. But obviously I wasn't meant to be there permanently. I felt like I was I had a welcoming party there for me, and it was 4 gentlemen. The shortest one was about 6'5", the tallest one was about 8 foot, and the other 2 were in between there. They were all dressed the exact same way, and they were this white kind of Roman garb, like a robe, but not like a politician, more like a soldier off duty. They were definitely more soldier in style than politician style, and that to me is a very important detail. Definitely the tallest guy had like these kind of Roman straps or designs on his I hate to call it a skirt, but kilt or whatever you want to call it, and they were like brownish with gold tracing, and then he had like a brown belt, like I don't know if it was leather, but it looked leather-ish, let's say. I was being shown around a town square in an environment I would call very heavenly. Basically, it appeared as though we're walking on a cloud, which is why I think it's really interesting that whenever people paint pictures or they talk about heaven, they talk about walking on a cloud or it's in the clouds. However, it was not a cloud. I'm going to explain. And I think this is really interesting because when I was there, there's a white light that fills the air. It's almost like it has a texture to it because there's like a thickness, like a cloud. When you see something go deeper into a cloud, it begins to become harder to see. Well, in this environment, the light doesn't have a source. There's not a sun in the sky, there's not lamps on the street, there's just light everywhere. And it seems to be coming from every direction or just hanging out in the air in a weird way. And when I was talking to these gentlemen, I couldn't even see their feet because the light was so bright. You would just be blinded to their feet. And so I could imagine that if I tried to paint that, it would look like we were walking on a cloud. But we weren't walking on a cloud. There was a solid ground. There was a mountain ridge in the background of the city that we were at. And when we finished our tour around this city, we stopped near a building, which I feel is a very significant building. So I'm going to describe it to you as best I can. It was about probably 60 feet, 70 feet tall or so. But I don't know how far away it was. So that's what I felt it was. And on the far, if you're looking at it, on the far left side, I only saw the upper left corner of it because of the light and the distance between us. And what I saw kind of poking out was this corner, and it was a flat front and it was a flat roof, and it had this pillar that twisted, and at the top of the pillar that twisted, it had a very simple leaf design with olives. And at the bottom of the pillar, it had the exact same design again.
I left my body. And what it felt like to me was I thought that I had collapsed and hit my chin on the bar, because it seemed that I flew up in the air, straight up in the air. And it felt wonderful. And I forgot all about the nightclub, and I forgot all about not being able to breathe. And I was in the blue open sky, and I was shooting up, and I thought, I'm going to do a swan dive back. And so I curved my back, and I did this beautiful overarching dive, and then below me I saw was the ocean. And it was blue, and it just went to the horizons, which didn't worry me either. I did, as I was getting ready to dive in, I thought, I am coming from awful high. This could hurt, and I might go so deep I can't get to the surface. So I had just the only fear I ever felt on the other side was like, this could be tricky. So I dive in, I'm under the water, it doesn't hurt at all, and I look up and I see the surface. It's beautiful, beautiful, dappling surface, and I get to it. It's far away, but I get to it no problem, and I'm up. And then I look around and I see the shore, and I want to be there, and I'm there, no problem, which doesn't seem weird. It doesn't seem weird that I want to be somewhere and then I'm there. And then I'm on the beach, and I look down and I see down maybe about 500 feet from me, there's a mesa coming up out of the beach, like everything else has been eroded away, but this mesa and this old house that's up on top of it. And I think, I know that house. That's something to do with me. So I want to get to it, and I'm there. But when I get to it, instead of a mesa, it's this slimy rock and kind of gooey, like ooze all over it. But it didn't bother me. As I climbed it, I left my body. It's like my body didn't climb it with me, or I first became aware because I was so close to the rocks. And when I got to the door sill, I was right at the sill. So I go in, and I remember I was traveling low over the floor, and I could see it was all this old wood that had been pounded, and I knew it was by my ancestors. I knew all my ancestors. We all came through this same house, and they had worn the wood over time to this fine powder. And I felt so honored to be there. I was so, like, it's my turn now, and I'm in the old house. And I felt they could see me. I felt they were proud of me. I could not see them. The one presence I sensed really strongly was my father's father, and he's the only one who died before I was born. I'd only seen his picture in my dad's closet. But he was really glad I was there. And there was this picture window that overlooked the ocean, and there had used to be a chair in front of it. I don't think the chair was still there, but I wanted to look out the window all my ancestors loved. I just knew they loved it so much.
I did go to what I call home. I call it home. There was a rock, and I remember sitting on that rock, and there was a woman sitting beside me. I also remember a building, a cottage. She explained to me, she said, the cottage represents your existence, your total existence. She says, every line in the wood that you see represents your path in a lifetime. And everywhere I'd look around the cottage, I could see these lines that intersecting all over the place. I think, wow, this is so amazing. And I said, I created this? And she says, yes, you did. Because everything ever done is represented in that cottage. And I thought, wow, this is the most amazing thing.
Now let me share with you some other things briefly that happened while I was there. I saw a beautiful temple of light. It was surrounded in gold. I could see gorgeous colors around it, and I could see through the temple that there were beings that were studying in white robes and studying and learning, just like we would here, and they looked just like us. I could also see that there was a border of light, and I knew I could not go past that place, or I would like be sucked into this wonderful light, which was my true home, and I could not come back here.
Personality is a portion of a soul's energy temporarily in a human body, but the soul is vast. It goes beyond one personality, and it's operating on many dimensions all at the same time. Now, when the pre-birth planning is conducted, it's conducted in particular rooms in particular buildings. These are not physical buildings, they're not physical rooms, they're etheric, they're non-physical. They're created by consensual thought. In the non-physical realm that we come from, thought is literally creative, and it manifests instantly. So the planning takes place by consensual thought. In other words, all the souls agree, we will plan in a place that looks like this, that looks like a room in a building, and so that room and that building come into existence because of the thought.
Now, I was totally unaware of all of this because I was instantly transported to another realm. I was suspended within this huge Colosseum, and I was actually suspended in the air in between these two massive columns, but the columns went, miles and miles from either side, and the Colosseum was behind me. There were stairs, like 1,000 stairs that were coming up to this Colosseum. And the Colosseum was made of this brilliant light that I would explain. When you explain about the Colosseum that was there, which was made of light, but the light, it's so difficult to explain, it's frustrating. But if you think about on the earthly realm, there's the infrared and ultraviolet light, but we can just see a tiny fraction of that. And then in this realm, it must have just exploded that I had that full range. And another way that I've explained it before is a pearl within an oyster. It's that beautiful white colour, but you can see that pink and purple within it. But just imagine going to that full spectrum of infrared and ultraviolet. It's just a magnificent colour that is just, it's comforting. It's almost like a liquid. You're in this water-filled flow of comfortness, and it's the peace and the love and that unconditional love. People say it's like going home. To remember this in the detail that I had, and the fact that I was obsessed with this place for months afterwards, I just could not get out of my head this incredible realm. But it's not what people say, it's how they make you feel, and that's what I felt up there is what made it so special. Now behind me as well, there were also these beams within the Colosseum. And again, this is very difficult to explain, but we were all just connected by this. It's like almost like a thread of light or love that everything was connected within this realm.
And so I just didn't have any experience or I don't remember hearing a sermon on heaven ever. So I had no preconceived concept of what to expect, but when I saw this wall, I noticed the wall was hugely thick, and it was translucent stones. It was made of stones that you could see through, and the light was coming from that same source that I had seen at the distance. And I try to use aviation distances because I kind of think that way, but I'm guessing that when I first saw the light and got close to the city, it was about 40 to 50 miles away. But now that I'm near the wall, it's about half that distance, I'm guessing, roughly, using U.S. miles, I'm sorry. But the wall was made of 3 outer layers of walls. It was literally stair-stepping up to the center top wall and then stair-stepping back. And it was about as thick as it was tall, around 200 feet, maybe a little more. So it was a very, very thick wall, and it was greenish in color, clearly, with little hints of blue and black, but primarily a green wall. But through the base of the wall especially, you could see this extremely powerful light that illuminated through the stones, and almost every color of the rainbow would be represented, especially in the bottom. But there were bright, multicolored buildings that were built just beautifully, but orchestrated in a way that was balanced and harmonious to each other. No two were the same, no two homes were the same, 3, 4 stories and taller. Very customized, but everything working toward complete and utter balance and order and harmony. And of course there was other things to see and other things to notice, but that was tremendous, awesome.
There's an even brighter ball of light, and it was just emanating this energy out over everything, and I realized, that's God. Look at that. Unreal. It was just this magnificent ball of light. You just knew intrinsically that it was the life force of everything. And I saw this golden city way in the distance. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to head towards that city. I want to see what that's about. And the moment my consciousness went towards that city, my body just started to go. You weren't walking, you just started to move. You started to glide. It was like where your consciousness, where your attention flowed, where your attention went, it was like everything flowed that way, everything. And I start moving towards this city quietly, just moving along, taking everything in. And as I'm passing trees, I'm looking at the birds in the trees, and they've got bright light. It doesn't matter. It's every bird and every tree, their singing was just, it was like angels. It was just unreal. The sounds were so incredible. It was unreal. The trickling of water down a river stream. Oh my God. It just was incredible. And there's light shining out of these all the animals, the birds. As I went past this tree and some bushes, some deer came out from behind the bushes, and they were looking at me. And they've got this bright golden light shining out of them. And it was like they knew me and I knew them. You could feel the consciousness, the oneness between the two, between us. And it was like you were communicating with them, but you weren't communicating with them, but you were communicating with them. You knew them and they knew you. And you just stop and you just look at them, and they're not afraid of you in any way, shape or form. They just stood there and they just took you in. So I carry on moving towards this beautiful city. Oh, sorry. The other thing that was mind-blowing about what rolled out in front of me, I grew up in the Wairau Valley of Blenheim, New Zealand. And what rolled out in front of me was the exact same Wairau Valley. This golden city was right up in the foothills, up towards an area called St. Arnaud. But there was no man-made stuff. There was nothing man-made there. There was no streets, no roads, no homes. It's like it's the same realm, but different. It's like this. It's like beyond this. It's like if a veil drops down, you can move into that realm, and it's the same place. That's the crazy thing about it.
There's this all-encompassing sense of love and joy. So they greeted me, and we communicated, although not in English, not with our mouths. It was a form of communication that made me truly, truly understand how God can speak to people of different languages, and everyone understands them in their own language. And so we traveled down this path, and we didn't walk with our feet. We just moved, and we just traveled. And we traveled into an area where there was a giant field of sorts that again was beautiful, but it was all colors, and the sense of beauty was very intense. And there was this large dome, and that, again, it doesn't sound quite right when I describe it in words, but a dome that was brilliant. And that word is very overused, but it was shimmering and brilliant and beautiful and exploding with love.
And we went through these beautiful pink and gold clouds. They were magnificent. The clouds were just lined with gold. You know, they were pink and fluffy and just absolutely the most magnificent things you've ever seen in your life. And so we were moving very rapidly through these pink and gold clouds. And then we got to the end of the pink and gold clouds, and there was this magnificent garden. And it was, and I was kind of like, okay, and how did we get here? And what is this? But I was just in the wow factor because the colors were so beautiful, and there were flowers everywhere, and I heard birds, and, you know, there were animals, and there was a stream, and that stream sparkled like diamonds. The water was blue, and it was so beautiful. Just at the entrance, I mean, all of this was just at the entrance of the garden, this magnificent beauty. My brothers and I continued walking through the garden, and I was noticing the landscapes, and I saw some buildings, and it was like there was this beautiful city, and in the middle of the city was this building that had a beautiful golden dome. It was huge. And there were other buildings on the outskirts of the city. So I'm standing in this garden, and there was also a fieldstone wall that had beautiful pink roses growing up and over the wall. And I know God put that there because I love pink roses. So he puts this, you know, I'm seeing these gorgeous pink roses, and then all these other flowers that are, the reds are redder, the pinks are pinker, the yellows are yellower, and it just, everything was so beautiful. So I could see these buildings on the outskirts of the city. There's a wall around the city, and then the buildings on the outskirts of the city. And I noticed houses. I could see individual, look like homes, people's homes. And there was one that was like, it looked like it was on a hillside or a cliffside, and there was like ocean. You could see the waves. And the house was like, I don't know, it was made out of some kind of stone that glistened, some kind of crystal or something. It was absolutely beautiful. And I saw another house that looked something like an English cottage made of stone also. And there were the most beautiful gardens in the back part of the house, and like in the backyard. There are roses everywhere, because I love roses, but I zoom right in on the roses, you know. I saw buildings that had these beautiful healing pools, and I was given the information that those were people who have died from traumatic deaths or very quick deaths, and they don't know that they're dead. They are taken to places like that, and they're gently brought to the awareness of what's happened. There are angels and mentors and teachers and loved ones who have passed on, and that becomes their job, to greet people that have come and, you know, that have just died, and they greet you and they get you acclimated to where you are, and they're very gentle about what they do, you know. And I saw a building, and these buildings are like alabaster, you know, marble, and they're magnificent. They were so beautiful. And I saw, it looked like a giant library. The walls were just lined with thousands and thousands of books for every subject you could possibly think of. And I know that and I saw schools there, but these are not schools of science like we have here. These are schools for spiritual growth. You can like go to spiritual college, you know.
My next experience was very beautiful. I was taken to, or shown a space that was like a big stone room, very massive and very beautiful and very ornate, and certainly a place that was of high respect. Many things happened in this room, some of which I hold close to my heart, others I'm willing to share. One of the things that I was shown in this room was my map, or my soul plan, laid out on this big, massive, marble-like table. Again, nothing like what we have here.
I saw that on the other side, there was nothing but pure light, and I was happy because I somehow felt that something very beautiful would come to me. I had the impression that I was beyond this tube, in space, that I was flying through the dark space in the night, far, far away, toward a bright star. And when approaching this planet, this star, I realized that what was shining was a city. I remembered a great longing that seized me. I wanted desperately to go there. I knew that this was my home, where I belonged. And I actually reached this city. But at that very moment, when I tried to put my foot on the pavement there, something else was moving from the rear, and it pulled me back, away from the city, away from this light, and again through all of space, with lightning speed through this tube. And then I found myself above the operating table, where the doctors were working on me, and were quite worried, and they were sweating, and so I was encouraged to say to them, "Don't give up, we'll make it, and that it will all go well." Then it was probably dark for a moment, so I didn't consciously experience myself when I was inside my body, because during anesthesia I had no perceptions. My conscious perception always relates to the time when I was outside my body, and this has happened twice. So I came back encouraging the doctors, and then I was again pulled back toward this city. But this time I was not as close to this place as before, but just as far as I could perceive it well. I saw the houses, I saw the squares, I saw the light, and then I was pulled back. And the third time, I got pulled back just about at the halfway mark, so my physical condition seemed to gradually stabilize. I could not move so far away from my body as I had before. I was called back earlier. I couldn't really experience what it was like there. Can you remember anything special about the city you have seen? Unfortunately, I don't remember very much. I can only describe the district that was bright, in my memory, in the way that walls were very white, consisting of pure light, I'd say. And I had the impression that everything I saw on this star was shining out of itself and was not illuminated from the outside, but was emanating light. It was very bright. Everything was put together. I think that the whole was surrounded by a wall around the outside, and I also remember that I came into a closed garden-like courtyard that was not narrow, but where there was a lot of space, but nevertheless it was an enclosed area that was not simply open toward the outside. Furthermore, I still fondly remember the pavement, and also when I thought, if our architects would only get inspiration from all these worlds over here. It was so beautifully built, not ancient, actually in quite modern style, but also very, very harmonious.
The upper astral is where the schools are, and the Temple of Wisdom complex is my most favorite place. And you got to remember, in my work, I've heard hundreds and hundreds of people describe these same things again and again and again. If they all describe the same things without knowing what the others have said, to me that gives it validity, because it's like a scientific experiment. But they describe the Temple of Wisdom complex. It is composed of many different parts. They're like huge temples. They look like Roman temples with the big pillars. Well, one of the parts that they talked about is the healing temple. And I was told I could do a great service to people to let people know about this, because you don't have to die to go there. You can go there in meditation. You can go there in your dreams at night to the Temple of Healing. And they showed me long lines of people lined up. They've just died, and they have to go to the Temple of Healing first, like a cleansing, before they can go on to where they're supposed to go. And as they come in, there's always a guardian of each one of these parts. And the guardian of the temple, the greeters brought the person in. They take the person into the center of this dome-shaped room. And the top of the dome is full of beautiful stones of every color you can imagine. And the light comes down. It is just beautiful, shining down on the floor. And the person stands in the center of this and is bathed in this beautiful light. And what it does, it takes away any residue of anything that you've gone through, maybe the death or anything you've gone through in that life. It just washes it all away so that you can go on to where you're supposed to go. But they said if people wanted to go there and be healed, they could also picture it and go there at night, because they said they can tell the ones who are not dead. They see the silver cord trailing behind them. And they know that they're there for a different reason. Another part of the Temple of Wisdom complex is the tapestry room. And I've written about this in many of my books. The tapestry is huge, and it goes for miles. It's on one huge wall. And the people that had seen it said it's almost like it's alive. It's a fabric, but it's like it breathes. It's almost alive. And in this tapestry are many, many threads. Every one of you has a thread in the tapestry. It's the thread of life. And it's the story of your life is in these threads in this tapestry. And it shows how it all interweaves and all interconnects, how we all affect each other and how we're all connected together. So it's like you're one, but you're also everything. So everybody affects everybody else in some way as it all interweaves. And they told us that it'd be very important for people to realize you don't know how much you affect other people. What you say, what you do affects everyone in your life. This is because we're all interwoven and we're all affecting each other. So the tapestry of life is very important. You can see we're all, once you understand these things, there's no prejudice, there's no judgment, because we're all the same. We're all trying to learn something and get out of this rat race off of the wheel of karma. We're all here for the same reason in this school. You can't judge people. They're just at different stages of their growth and different classes that they're taking. So the tapestry is very important. And it's been explained in several of my books, if you read mine, about that, what happens when people go into the tapestry and go on the other side into our concept of time. Okay, and my favorite place is the library. Because every time I go there, there's always a guardian. Now, I don't go, I'm taking my person there, but I feel I've seen it enough that I know what it's like, and it's beautiful. There's a guardian of the library. So when you come in, well, I come with the person, and the first thing they want to know, oh, okay, it's you again. What do you want to know now? Because they know me. So that everything I've written about, my research, I ask them questions, I can have the information, because the library contains every information you could think of. This is how I got the information I wrote about Earth mysteries, about Atlantis, all these things by going to the library. Because the library has everything that is, all the knowledge that has ever happened and all the knowledge that ever will be, that we cannot possibly imagine, is all in this library. So to me, it's the most favorite place. And if you want, you can see it as books. You can see it as energy. People have asked me about the Akashic records. They're there also. You can have access to them. But this is the way you want to obtain the information. You can do it by reading or by accessing the scrolls or however you want to get it. But there are other ways to do it also, and this is how I've got a lot of the things I've written about. Along the sides of the library are rooms. In these rooms, it's rather like going in Star Trek in the holodeck. You step into those rooms, and if there's something you want to know about, it appears around you, and you're right in the middle of it, and you can see it happening. The other places are the schools. Now, they said in these schools, you also go to the level that you vibrate at, your frequency is at. My idea of heaven, what they always talk about, floating around on a cloud, playing a harp, that'd be so boring. That's not for me. I'm always looking for information. My idea of heaven is the schools. Because in these schools, you can have all knowledge of anything you possibly want.
En la ciudad de oro. Muy lindo es la ciudad de oro. Las paredes son llenas de oro. Sale la luz de las paredes como si había piedras con luz. Y yo estaba acá. Oh, yo quiero mucho vivir acá con vos.
Ich war in einem Tempel, das war also alles weiß und hell.
Als Sie klinisch tot waren, dann erlebten Sie eine Naht- oder
Eine Trance, ja, also so, ich weiß nicht, wie man dem sagt, ich bin so wenig geschult. Ich war nicht mehr auf dieser Welt. Und dann war ich eben in den Raum, das war eine Halle, ein Tempel, da waren Säulen, war alles sehr hell, wie jetzt hier die Scheinwerfer, war alles weiß. Und dann, ich weiß nicht, wie es geschah, sah ich noch ein helleres Licht und dann kamen zwei Erscheinungen mir entgegen.